So this one's my advice column. People ask me stuff like this all the time, and I really want to share with people why is it essential to be vulnerable when you're teaching, right? It's like being vulnerable, being able to put yourself out there, and whatnot, and because this is something that I see a lot of my colleagues. The new school tends to be a lot more vulnerable, but the old school, they're definitely much more in the prototype of thinking that they have to be perfect, they have to be, like they have to be stern and all of this stuff. And I'm like, you know what? Being vulnerable means a lot to our students and whatnot, because the very first thing that I think about when you're vulnerable with your students, is that it shows them that you care, right? Now, here's the deal: is that you should never share a story in class. Not never. You should be very careful about sharing stories in class that actually don't further content, right? Because students, they don't necessarily like that. Not unless they really like you as a person, then they don't necessarily like that. But if you use stories, personal stories, I use the stories about my family and stuff all the time, but I always use it, and about myself all the time, but I always use it to push the sociological content. Well, I shouldn't say always. Again, it's like, look, there's some times that I just go off and whatnot in class about something, but it's like the vast majority of times I'm using those personal stories to actually push the content. Now, look, I understand that that's easier for me as a sociologist, right? Because everything's sociological, and so me analyzing the way I interact with my family and my daughter and stuff like that, those things are eminently sociological, and so that's why I feel very comfortable in sharing that. But I want to encourage more teachers to be vulnerable, because it demonstrates that you care. And I'm going to tell you this: the research actually demonstrates that pound for pound, showing students that you care has the most effect on on whether they can learn from you or not. I know that that sounds weird to a lot of people. It's like, oh, they should be able to learn from me because I have all this knowledge and stuff. No. That's not how, honestly, that's not how learning works. It's like the reason why, I would argue, the reason why you trust your family, or like you learn so much from your parents and your siblings and whatnot, is because you learn to trust them, right? And whatnot. So what would you learn from them if you didn't trust them at all? I'm just saying, right? And so think about that, right? And here's what caring doesn't mean. Caring doesn't mean that you are going to lower your expectations, right? As a matter of fact, the best way to show that you care is by setting high expectations, but helping them get there. I have this colleague, and he always says it like this. He's like, I have the highest expectations for my class, and I will drag you to the finish line if you need me to drag you all the way to the finish line in order for you to be able to do well in this class. And so, I mean, he's that passionate about this. And I'm going to tell you what, his classes fill up all the time because students believe it. The word is out. This man cares about my education and my learning, and that's why people flock to this guy, right? Caring doesn't mean that you take your problems home, or you take their problems home with you, okay? Think about this one, right? It's because this was difficult, right? Because if you're going to listen to someone's problems and whatnot and show them that you care, like when a student comes to your office hour, it's hard. It is. It's truly, genuinely hard to listen to a lot of these stories and not take it home with you. But that doesn't mean you need to solve them. The vast majority of students, quite honestly, they just want to be heard. They literally just want to be heard, right? And so, look, I'm a sociologist now, but I actually, when I was at community college, when I was at Maricosta, I was a math major, believe it or not. I have my AA in mathematics, believe that or not. And I was in, I think it was Calc 1 or something like that. And I had this horrible story. Like, it's like I was doing well in all of my classes. I was getting A's, you know what I'm saying? I mean, don't be mad at me because I'm good at math, okay? Don't hate the player, hate the game. And so, but I was doing well in all my math classes. And but there was this one time I remember, it was Calculus 1, and it was the only math class I ever got a B in or at Maricosta when I was in community college. It was the only class I got a B in, and that pissed me off. But the reason why I got a B is because the day that we were supposed to be reviewing for the test, my car was stolen. Now I had this busted old, back in my day we called them hoopties. This busted down, nobody in their right mind would actually steal this car because there's nothing to steal. Someone stole my car, straight up. And so they stole my car, and I couldn't afford to buy another one, and so I decided to buy a bike instead. Okay, now, so it wasn't the day of; it was a little bit before that, and so then the day that I was supposed to go to the review for the calculus test, the day I was supposed to go up there, the police officers, they called me and they said that they found my car and that it was at a certain lot, right? And so I needed to go over there, but I'm like, you know what? I'm all about this review session, and so I'm going to pedal my bike and I'm going to go to my review session, and then I'm going to go pick up my car after I do this review session because that's how important it was to me, right? And so as I'm riding my bike to school, my bike breaks. The gears on the bike literally, like, it bends. I don't know how that happened. I know I didn't buy an expensive bike, but damn it, that shouldn't have happened. But anyway, so not only did it break, the gears got stuck in the hardest gear to pedal in. I'm not kidding. I can't make this stuff up, folks. That is actually what happened. And so the bike gets stuck in the hardest gear to pedal in, and I'm trying to make a decision. I'm at a crossroads. I could actually go to my review session, or I could try to go get my car, and still, it's like, there's no way I was going to make it to my review session in time with this broken bike. And so I decided to go downhill and try to get my car. And so I get my car, and I find out they steal the battery out of it. And so I'm like, you know what? But I'm like, damn it, I'm gonna make it to this review session. And so I go to the auto shop in order to buy a battery. But look, I'm not mechanically inclined, folks. This is just I didn't know that batteries came in different sizes. And so I bought a battery, I came back, and the battery didn't even fit. And so now I'm stuck. I decided to buy the right battery, but remember, I'm actually using my bike that's stuck in the hardest gear while doing all of this stuff. And there comes a point where I'm just like, you know what, forget all of this. I'm not going to the damn review session, right? And so the next day, I get my car back and I go to school and I take the test. I get my test back and I get a D. And on the test it says, what happened? Like, the teacher wrote it down because I was so successful before. She was like, what happened? Right? On the test, like, what happened? And so I told her this story, right? And she just looked at me like, damn. And so, but here's the other part about caring. Caring doesn't mean that you have to give them a break, because she didn't give me a break. She actually just said, it's like, I just wanted to be heard. I just wanted to know that I took this seriously. It's just that all of this stuff happened to me. And she was like, you know what, Bruce? Here's what we're going to do. You're going to drop this test because you're going to, it's like it's within the policy for us to drop a test. You're going to drop this test and then just climb back in. You'll be just fine. And so I wanted to get into being that class. But anyway, that's a real story. And like I said, demonstrating that you care is paramount. The other thing, though, that, you know, here I am telling this story, is that it makes you human. This is so important for students to know, because you know what? The day of the know-it-all professor, I swear that's just done. That shouldn't exist anymore. That we are human, we try, because if you realize that you're human and you're being vulnerable, then you're also, as a teacher, you're going to be willing to try new things in order to communicate to your students better. And that's going to make you into a better teacher. And so knowing and that you're human and making mistakes, that's a good thing. And then the last part of it, and this is probably the most important part, is that it lets them know when you're vulnerable. It also lets them know, and that when you're vulnerable, it lets them know that you care. It lets them know that you're human, and it also lets them know that they can do it themselves, right? And I only introduced myself as Dr. Bruce Hoskins one time in the semester. That's at the very beginning, and the only reason why I do that is to let all these community college students know that I teach, that I started off a community college student, and now I'm Dr. Bruce Hoskins. And that is as important to me as anything that I've ever done for a lot of these students, right? And so anyway, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave those below. If you like what you're hearing, please make sure that you subscribe and share. And check me out at brucehoskins.com if you want to know more about who I am and what I do. Peace, y'all.